Hello, and welcome to Growth Mindset Training 201 from Partnership for Kids. My name is Brad, the Curriculum Coordinator at P4K, and I'll be guiding you through this training. Let's talk about the brain for a second. We know the basics of the brain. It's gray. It's not much bigger than your fist. The average brain weighs about 3 pounds. It's kind of soft and lumpy. Looks a little bit like hard cottage cheese. The cortex has many grooves in it, kind of like a shelled walnut. But you're not here for a description of the brain, so why am I telling you all of this? Well, the basic structure of the brain is that it's made up of billions and billions, perhaps even trillions of neurons. Each of these neurons are connected in multiple communication networks, and they talk to each other. So when you have a thought or you work on a skill, the thinking for that thought or the doing of that skill happens in a huge network of cells that communicate all across your brain. Now, they have very special shapes with different parts that allow them to connect to each other, but ultimately, they are the same. Now, neurogenesis is a new way of thinking about the brain. The old way said you have a certain number of neurons. That cannot change. Your brain can't get bigger or anything like in the cartoon, and it's not going to explode out of your head. The new thought process, though, no pun intended, is that we do generate new neurons and can maintain them through hard work and learning. The brain is now seen as something of a muscle. The more you learn, the more information you process, new neurons will grow. The old thought process sort of holds true here, except if you don't act on your old thoughts and if you don't reinforce what you're learning, those neural connections will slowly dissipate. If you've ever had a thought that you've come across and you said, oh, I used to know that, that's neurons slowly losing their connection in your brain because you haven't practiced. Now, challenging yourself is the best way to make new neural connections. Intelligence is the ability to think, and especially the ability to take new information in and use it in creative ways. When you learn new things, you make new connections in your brain. The more connections between brain cells, the more new thoughts you can create. You'll actually notice yourself feeling smarter. In fact, although your brain won't explode, the used parts of your brain will actually grow bigger as your knowledge increases. You'll find it easier to work when you are communicating from those specific parts of your brain. Let's talk about IQ. I mentioned intelligence a second ago. IQ stands for intelligence quotient. IQ tests, intelligence quotient, compare your performance with other people your age who have taken the same test. So for example, we can see this bell curve. This is the IQ score distribution of the general population. The average score comes to be right around 100, although the average range is between 85 and 115. In fact, over 2/3 of people score between that 85 and 115 range. To be in Mensa, you need to score 130, which puts you in the top 2% of all IQ test takers. Now, many people think about their IQ as something that is static and limiting for them. We see these job descriptions: Albert Einstein, extraordinary genius, huge IQ. And then we look at the bottom range, people who can barely complete repetitive tasks or even elementary school academics. So if we have the intelligence that puts us in this range, then that's as smart as we'll ever get, right? That's as great and as high as we can ever climb on the ladder. And that's not true, and we know it. We know that everybody with an IQ between 110 and 119 doesn't graduate from college. We know that everybody with an IQ between 160 and 175 doesn't go on to reclassify the way that we think about the universe and change so many of our thought processes. That's not how it works. There's many other things that go into intelligence. Hard work, for example, would fall into this category. But ultimately, it's all about your mindset. There's been many people born as smart as Einstein. But how come there's only one Einstein? There's two mindsets. You can think, I'm as smart as I'm ever going to be, or that intelligence is a changeable quality. a potential that lies deep within everybody that can be developed. Now, this fixed mindset, this is the first one, the idea that you only have a certain amount of intelligence and that it's very static. You want to look smart, but you want to avoid challenges. You don't want to deal with obstacles. Too much effort, not necessarily a good thing. Feedback is usually ignored, and you're often threatened by other success if you fall into a fixed mindset. Growth mindset, on the other hand, says that intelligence can be developed. It leads to a desire to learn. When kids want to be in school, they want to learn, and that is a good thing. Psychologist Carol Dweck, who developed the growth mindset philosophy, argues that rather than giving students easy tasks within their comfort zones and providing praise for succeeding on these tasks, teachers should be communicating to students that unchallenging tasks are a waste of time. So let's look at that fixed mindset for a second. The fixed mindset is easily identified. The fixed mindset comes, and you can hear it from people who say things like, oh, I was just born an artistic person, or a math person, or a natural athlete, and you can't really change those labels. And while some people may find those things initially easier, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're limited in your ability to take on those challenges. There is proof, though, that your brain can grow and change, and even people's mindsets can change from fixed to growth. We want people to stop saying things like, I've always had trouble with math. Why shouldn't I say that I'm just not good at it and quit trying? Or, other people in my family didn't have success, and we have the same genes, so why should I have success? Those are the kind of mindsets and thought processes that we want to avoid. There's the zone of proximal development. It's often abbreviated as ZPD, and it's the difference between what a learner can do without help and what he or she can do with a little bit of help. The zone of proximal development states that children follow adults' examples and gradually develop the ability to do certain tasks without help. Now, Lev Vygotsky, he's a Soviet psychologist. That's how old this philosophy is and how long the early seeds of it go back. Vygotsky and other educators believe that education's role is to give children experiences that are within their zones of proximal development, thereby encouraging and advancing their individual learning. We want them to feel smart. We want them to be challenged. We never want them to feel disengaged. That's where teaching begins to remain and will stay ineffective. So that green zone, that zone of things they can do, we want that to be as big as possible. We want everything to feel attainable and something they can do. But the further they get from that can zone, the more unattainable it becomes. So by exposing students to as many different types of experiences as possible, it allows them to see that there are possibilities out there that they may never have even imagined. Now let's talk about the growth mindset. The growth mindset comes from Carol Dweck. Now, Dweck's big philosophy was that many educators, and this is a quote from her book, The Growth Mindset, many educators think that lowering their standards will give students success, experiences that boost their self-esteem, things that raise their achievement. That doesn't work. Lowering standards just leads to poorly educated students who feel entitled to easy work and lavish praise. A growth mindset is the belief that your basic qualities and abilities are things that you can change and grow. Through effort, the right strategies, and getting help from others, you can achieve more than you thought you could. With this brain toolkit, you know about how your brain can change. How does it affect you? A mindset about your intelligence, physical ability, or personality can affect many parts of your life. So why the growth mindset? How did the growth mindset really come into view? Well, when students have a growth mindset, they learn that intelligence can be developed. They are not limited by what people have told them their entire lives. They're only limited by what they are willing to do. So they focus on improvement instead of worrying about how smart they are. As long as they're getting better, they're doing a good job. They work hard. The idea is to work hard, and the smartness, the intelligence, that's a byproduct. But the real key being developed here is hard work and the belief that anything is possible. Based on years of research by Dr. Dweck, Lisa Blackwell, and their colleagues at Stanford, we know that students who learn the growth mindset show greater motivation in school, better grades, and higher test scores. In one particular study, Blackwell and her colleagues followed hundreds of students making the transition to 7th grade. They found that students with a growth mindset were more motivated to learn and exert effort, and outperformed those with a fixed mindset in math, a gap that continued to increase over that 2-year period. Those two mindsets entered the same 7th grade classes with the same past achievement records. But because of their mindsets, their math grades slowly separated as the growth mindset students became more advanced than the fixed mindset students. So where does praise come into all of this? What is the effect of praise? Well, intelligence praise says, wow, you must be really smart. But according to Dweck's study, that actually decreases student scores. Effort praise, though, was found to increase student scores, saying things like, you must have worked really hard on that. That is the kind of idea and the kind of language that makes the growth mindset successful. So how we communicate with our students shows what we value. Do we want them to be smart, or do we want them to work hard? And then we think about what comes with hard work. More often than not, intelligence, good grades, the things that intelligence praise is going after falls into that effort praise as a very beneficial side effect. Lots of research has been done on this subject. I mentioned Carol Dweck already, but let's talk about another study. This is another Dweck study. It was a study that stated that students who had adults who helped them develop a growth mindset saw differentiated behaviors over time. They were more achieving, and they showed more mature behavior as well. When teachers and students change to a growth mindset, they change from a judge and be judged framework to a learn and help learn framework. Their commitment is to growth, and growth takes plenty of time, effort, and mutual support. That's from Dweck's book. A junior high math student, same ability at the beginning, another example Dweck likes to use. As the work gets harder, a student with a fixed mindset sees their math achievement plateau or even drop off because they're disengaged, it gets too hard. Whereas with a growth mindset, as the work gets harder, the student sees it as a challenge. They want to learn, and they figure out a way to make it happen. Remember, your brain is a muscle. You have to strengthen it to work it out, or work it out to strengthen it, and you have to do so consistently. So how does this change our conversation with students? Well, we want to talk about things that are always difficult, how things are always difficult before they become easy. We want kids to know that they have the power to learn and grow. But we also want to build relationships. It's extremely important that the students feel they have a strong relationship with an adult who has a growth mindset, or at the very least encourages a growth mindset. Remember that example from Dweck a moment ago? Students surrounded by adults with a growth mindset saw challenges not as an obstacle, but as something that they would get past, something they would work hard to overcome. So we shift from teaching students to teachable moments. Instead of saying, here's how you do this, A plus B equals C, we can instead look at it and ask them, what did you learn from this? How would you do it differently? Did you work as hard as you could have? Ultimately, we don't want to praise the intelligence, we want to praise the process. And we want students to seek praise for their process, for their hard work, not simply for their grades. So how does this change the language that we use? I alluded to this earlier, but instead of saying, wow, you're so smart, you say, try harder, keep going. If that approach isn't working, we can talk about how else can you think about it. What else could we try? Growth mindset is critical thinking at its finest. You're evaluating your circumstances and you're thinking, how can I overcome this challenge? When students succeed, ask them, how did you accomplish that? What was your strategy? You may just get responses like, well, I'm really smart. But you know better. You know that they worked hard. Get them to change their mindset from I am smart to I worked hard, I tried, I paid attention in class, I took notes. That's where our focus is. So if your student says to you, well, Joey's smarter than I am, or I got an F on my test and there's nothing I can do about it. Maybe they'll say I got frustrated or I gave up. Nobody in my family was good in school. It's too hard. That's a fixed mindset, and we will ultimately try to wean our students from that mindset. We want them to look at it as not Joey's smarter than I am, but maybe Joey's working harder than I am. I want to be as good at him at whatever it is that we're talking about, so I'm going to start working harder. I got an F on my test, but maybe I didn't study as hard as I could have. I don't like to study. So we talk to students about why studying is important and why the effort that they have to put in makes a big difference. This is part of the transition of our students from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. Great examples of a growth mindset. Somebody who works very hard. The idea of 10,000 hours was introduced in Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers. He said that in order to truly become a master of something, you must put in 10,000 hours of practice to become truly great. This translates to a lot of work. By the time that you meet with our students, most of them will have barely been alive for 10,000 hours. Well, that's not technically true. We want them to understand that hard work doesn't just get handed to you. Bill Gates didn't just wake up one day, write some computer software, and about 3 or 4 days later, he was a billionaire. Wilma Rudolph, the first American woman to win 3 gold medals, was paralyzed as a child. She worked as hard as she could. She put thousands and thousands of hours of practice in, and she went on to win track and field medals at the Olympics. The idea is that they work hard. Now, we're not pretending that some people don't pick up other things more quickly than other people. It's a lot easier to play basketball in the NBA if you're 6'9" and you're lightning fast and you can jump through the roof. However, that's not to say that there aren't players who were told their entire lives, you're too short, you're too slow, you're not good enough. They worked hard and they made it. Same thing goes with colleges. Some of our students are being told you can't go to college by people around them. You're not smart enough, you can't afford it. That's not what we want our students to believe. We want our students to believe and know that if they work hard enough, they can go to college. They can go to any college they want to, and they can achieve whatever dreams they have. The important thing is they understand that they will never do that by giving up. They may have to put in more effort than other people. They may see that as unfair. But ultimately, the idea of a growth mindset and the idea of hard work is something that needs to be deeply ingrained within our students. So we have the effort meter. The effort meter, you'll notice, looks a bit like a thermometer, and it's something you can ask the students about. How do you feel? Where on the meter? Show me on the meter where you found your effort at for this particular project. So they said, I got an F on this test. I'm not very smart. Okay, well, show me how hard you studied. If they're pointing at the blue, they think, well, if you got an F on this test, there's a lot of room for improvement here. So you're not limited to this. And so it's showing them that that effort is what pays off. Fixed mindset says, don't work too hard because you'll get what you get. A growth mindset says, I can always get better, I can always work harder, and I can always accomplish more. So last thing, this is from Carol Dweck's book, The Growth Mindset versus the Fixed Mindset. I'll give you a few moments at the end of this slide to look at these and compare the statements. But I think the first one really says it all. I can learn anything I want to if I have a growth mindset. A fixed mindset says I'm either good at it or I'm not. Thank you for attending this training. We hope you enjoyed yourself and that it was not too hard of work, although ultimately with a growth mindset, that's not a bad thing. We look forward to you working with our students and seeing you around our schools. Thank you very much.